Hi, my name is Mark Walensky. I'm a board member of the CVC. The CVC's mission is to help companies create successful volunteer programs. One of the things I'm excited about today is we're going to show firsthand the impact that those volunteer programs could have on the community. A lot of companies think, especially in this economy and this environment, why do I want to encourage my employees to take part in more volunteer programs? We're going to show firsthand the direct impact that it can have on local businesses when your employees do give back. It's also great for team building, and I think there's a lot of good stuff to get out of today's program for local companies.
Hi, I'm Craig Rice, Vice President of the Montgomery County Council, and I'm here today at a corporate volunteer session with the Corporate Volunteer Council, and it's extremely important and a tremendous part of our overall vision and mission of this county to incorporate our corporate partners and make sure that they're doing all they can to make Montgomery County all that it can be. We truly appreciate all the dedication and hours and the commitment that they have to making sure that our community is one of the best places to live in this great nation.
Hi, I'm Councilmember Phil Andrews. I represent the Rockville-Gaithersburg area of the county, and I'm really pleased that the Corporate Volunteer Council is sponsoring this event, which really gives people an understanding of the incredible work that's done by our nonprofits in Montgomery County. There's a panel discussion here with McHale and Impact Silver Spring and a wider circle that really helps people understand the impact that our health and human service agencies and our nonprofit providers make, the difference they make in helping individuals recover or get on their feet or survive a difficult time in their lives.
I'm Will Schroeder. I'm the president of the Corporate Volunteer Council. Today we're at MCM here to discuss the cycle of service in Montgomery County. The CVC, the Corporate Volunteer Council, is an association of businesses who come together on a monthly basis to talk and discuss and educate businesses about the needs in the community and how corporations can volunteer and give back to their community. Today we're talking about the demographics and areas of need in the county where businesses can make the most impact. Businesses and employees have a great voice in our county and go a long way to fulfilling the needs of so many people. And today we're going to be coming together to learn from some great nonprofits about areas of need and what corporations can do to make a difference. Mark Burgle from Wider Circle will be speaking, in addition to a great other number of panelists, and I'm really excited to have such a great turnout.
Welcome to the Corporate Volunteer Council Cycle of Service. Invest in your community, invest in our future program. My name is Mark Walensky, and I'm a CVC board member as well as the Vice President of Marketing for Mid-Atlantic Federal Credit Union. The mission of the Corporate Volunteer Council is to help businesses create successful volunteer programs. And if you'd like to help create successful volunteer programs, we invite you to join us on October 26th for Community Service Day, as well as on November 1st, our annual awards luncheon, where you can see firsthand some of the companies in the area that have done great jobs engaging their employees in volunteer programs. These programs and others are available on our website at cvc-mc.org. Before we get started, I want to acknowledge some of the elected and appointed officials that are with us today. We do ask that you hold your applause until the end, until everybody's been recognized. First, we'd like to welcome County Council members Craig Rice, Valerie Irvin, and Phil Andrews for joining us, as well as Chris Gillis from the Council Member George Leventhal's office, Ashima Talwar from Office of Congressman Van Hollen, Ken Reichert from the Office of Senator Ben Cardin, Molly Byron from the Governor's Office on Community Initiatives, and fellow CVC board member and co-chair of this event, Teresa Testoni, also from the Governor's Office on Service and Volunteerism. So thank you all for joining us today. I'd also like to recognize the other CVC board members that are here. I just ask that they just stay in their seats and maybe just put their arms up so we can thank them for joining us, as well as our own president, Will Schroeder, and of course the real face of the CVC, Sarah Burnett, who we couldn't have done this or any of the other events that we do without Sarah's help. So thank you all for joining us as well. Thank you all for attending today's event. I'm excited for today's event. I think you guys will be as well. After hearing from our guest speakers and panel, I think you're going to have a deeper understanding of some of the changing demographics of our county and how you can work with our nonprofit partners to really change the lives of the neighborhoods in need. I think it's a good program that we've planned for you today. Before we move forward, I do want to thank the Beanbag Deli and Company for providing that great breakfast with us. Mitch and his folks are not too far from here, so they've been a good partner of ours as well as a lot of the other companies in the area. So we ask that you use Mitch when you need him. So we appreciate Mitch helping us out. Now to get started, I wanted to introduce. We have two demographic experts to my right here, who are passionate about demographics in the United States and our county. First, Nesreen Kashan from the U.S. Census Bureau and Joanne Calderon from Montgomery County Department of Health and Human Services. Nesreen, why don't you take it away?
All right, I sure will. Good morning, everyone. Once again, I'm Nesreen Kashan with the U.S. Census Bureau, and my goal this morning is to put everything, set the stage, put everything into context for you by telling the story of Montgomery County's changing demographics. There's been a lot of changes in the last decade alone, whether in terms of population totals or racial and ethnic demographics. So during my presentation, I hope to give you a sense of trajectory the county is on now and the challenges and opportunities that trajectory presents. I'm just going to say, excuse the script, but I get really excited when I talk about data. So I only have 10 minutes, and I've really got to kind of discipline myself. Okay, so this isn't my favorite mode of presenting, but bear with me. So it's always important for me to start with the mission of the Census Bureau. As the leading source of quality data about the nation's people and economy, we honor privacy, protect confidentiality, share our expertise globally, and conduct our work openly. We are a customer-oriented agency, and each one of you are our customers and stakeholders. And so are the businesses and households that we survey each and every year. The loop from data collection to data dissemination demonstrates how much we need the public confidence in what we do. That's why we're governed by laws that protect the personal information our household and business respondents share with us. Information that is collected is aggregated and then turned into data that benefit our communities and our businesses. So my side of this cycle from data collection to dissemination is the dissemination side. And I really aim to promote the understanding of data through outreach and education. So I just want to take a minute and plug what I do, because if any of your organizations aren't using data, census data, to drive your decisions and to understand your mission, then you should get on the phone with me and figure out how we can help you make that happen. So let's go ahead and just start talking about the data. What you're looking at here is the rise in Montgomery County's foreign-born population from 2000 to 2011. You may notice that there are data for every consecutive year after 2005, but it doesn't begin until 2005, so it jumps from 2000 to 2005. Who here remembers the long form during the 2000 census? Okay, so some of you got the long form, sigh. I could see the sighs on your face. So back in 2010, we got rid of the long form. Our slogan was 10 questions, 10 minutes. And in 2005, we spun off this product called the American Community Survey. That essentially took all that long form questions and began releasing it to households every single year. 3.5 million households receive it every year. What you're looking at here, and we also release the data every single year. So what you're looking at here is the latest data available, but starting this Thursday, folks, you will be able to get 2012 one-year estimates for Montgomery County to continue this trajectory. So what you're seeing is that clearly going in one direction, especially after 2005, a steady but clear uptick in the number of foreign-born in your community, with a slight decline in 2011, but it may not even be statistically significant, that decline. It's so small. So here is the same data for Montgomery County, again, and it's 2000 to 2011, so it's the same time series that we're examining. Montgomery County is the olive green on top. So this is looking at people in your community who speak English less than very well. And I thought it would be instructive, especially with this slide, to look at how you compare in that olive green with the mustard yellow and the powder blue, the mustard yellow being the nation and the powder blue being Maryland. You are both higher in the total number of those who are not very proficient in English at the start of your trajectory, and you are also increasing at a faster rate than both the state and the nation. So this is a great indication of your need and clearly your continued need if this trajectory holds consistent, and we'll find out on Thursday. I hope you're all online on Thursday, 12:02 a.m., okay? Okay, just letting you know. All right. So here we're looking at poverty in Montgomery County from 2000 through 2011. We can see by tracking the olive green bar that poverty has increased slightly from 05 through 07. But then in 2008, it began to increase again. So Census Bureau statistics also show you how poverty affects certain household compositions. So the powder blue is poverty with families with related children under 5. And you can see there that poverty really started to tick up after 2006. And then in 2009, it jumped precipitously. And then in 2011, it seemed to stabilize again. But this again will show you not only how poverty affects the community at large, but how it affects some of our most vulnerable members of our community. And I know I'm short on time. Again, Montgomery County, 2005 to 2011 this time 2000 is gone. That's because in the 2000 census long form, we didn't ask about food stamp or SNAP participation. Again, I thought it would be instructive to look at this indicator with the state and the nation. This time, Montgomery County is rendered in the olive green at the bottom. So you've doubled in SNAP participation from the study period, 05 to 11, but you're still, and actually the state of Maryland nearly doubled in the same period. That's the powder blue. And in the mustard yellow this time is the nation, and it increased, clearly it increased, but not at the same rate as the state of Maryland or the county. And here we're looking at Montgomery County's uninsured estimates. So we didn't actually begin, this time you'll notice it's 2008 to 2011, a much shorter period. We didn't begin asking this till the 2008 American Community Survey. So you see a pretty minor percentage uptick from 11.6 at the start of our study period to 11.7 at the end, but that's 6,000 more people in your county at the beginning of the period than after who are uninsured. So I thought it would be instructive to put the estimate as well as the percentage, so you didn't just shrug off a 0.1% uptick. So it really is a great instructive moment there. So here we're moving away from indicators about who we are as a community and going straight into demographics. So what's happened here is this is a 30-year period, of course, and these are just white, black, Asians, and Hispanic. So every decade after decade, you, as a proportion of your total population, you've lost 10%. Your white population has declined by 10% after each census. So it's gone from 70 to 60 to 50. In 1990 census, your quarter of your county was African American or black, and it declined by almost 10% in 2000, but then it increased by about 2% in the 2010 census. And your Hispanics and your Asians, I think, are the most dramatic story here. You started off in 1990 with roughly 3% Asian and 2.5% Latino, Hispanic, and then you jumped to 11% in the subsequent census for both groups, and then your Asians increased by 14%. Montgomery County has one of the highest Asian populations in the state of Maryland, but then your Hispanics, the real headliners here, increased by 17% from 2000 to 2010. So who are your Hispanics? Overwhelmingly Salvadoran, almost 59,000, according to this one-year estimate, are of Salvadoran origin among your Hispanics, followed not very closely by Mexicans and Peruvians. And who are your Asians? Well, let me just point out first that this is not a one-year estimate. This is a 2009 through 11 three-year estimate. And that goes back to our confidentiality laws at the Census Bureau. We didn't have enough Asians to comfortably release the data as a one-year estimate, so we released it as a 3-year to make sure the data was sound and to make sure that the individual responses were protected. So you have here leading the pack our Chinese, followed by our Asian Indians, and not so closely our Vietnamese, but pardon me, our Korean, but still a significant segment of the population. And here, this is my last slide, Montgomery County's sub-Saharan African population, and this one is a 5-year estimate. Again, because of our confidentiality laws, we didn't have enough to release it in 3-year. We released it in 5-year. In this case, it's an average over 2006 to 2010, and leading the pack here are our Ethiopians, followed by Nigerians, and so on. So this concludes my portion of the presentation. Again, I just want to leave you with my contact details. Please consider visiting census.gov. The data are free. Support from me and my colleagues are free. And if you get overwhelmed, don't feel too daunted. Stay with it. Hop on to our occasionally free webinars, and then you'll start gaining that compounded knowledge that will really empower you to use data to benefit your communities. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Nazarene. That was kind of eye-opening there. Appreciate that, and I will definitely go on your website first thing Thursday morning and download that additional data. So,
Thank you.
now, Joanne Calderon with the Montgomery County Department of Health and Human Services.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for being here, and thanks for listening to our story, because the numbers that, in the context that Nazarene has given us, really give us the context for talking about people. And while I'm going to talk to you about numbers, I want you to think about the people behind them, whether they're children who are hungry, whether they're elderly people who are ending the near their life and disabled, whether young people who are disabled, people who are abused, whoever they are, but there are people behind these numbers. And that's the story I'd like for you to keep in mind as you're listening to this. I am working the Office of the Director in Planning and Evaluation for the Montgomery County Department of Health and Human Services. We see approximately 100,000 people come through our door every year. That's 10% of our population. That's a lot of people in need. Our mission is to promote and ensure the health and safety of our community, both broadly and individuals, and also to help build that individual and family self-sufficiency and strength so people can get out of our system. Our goal is for them not to stay in the system. We have 5 service areas, so we cover the spectrum of folks from birth all the way through the end of life, with aging and disability services, which is fairly self-explanatory, behavioral health and crisis services, so that's mental health, substance abuse, victim services, and so on. Children, youth, and families, which has all of our income supports, child welfare, youth programs, early childhood programs in that area. And then we have public health, which is both the broad community health, making sure we all don't get the latest virus that's coming down the road or we address it, as well as individual health and clinics that are in the community partnership part of our programs. We also, unlike many areas of the country, we have special needs housing, which you don't often think of in health and human services. That helps folks with rental assistance, utility assistance, helping stabilize their housing so they can maintain it. It also works with the shelter system, which is an important part of our county as well. The next slide shows you housing costs. This is sort of at the core of what some of the issues are in Montgomery County is of housing affordability. It's estimated that people should not spend more than 30% of their income on housing. Yet, as you'll see in Nazarene census data as well, that more than 30% more people are spending more on their housing than is really affordable for them. So for owner-occupied houses, that's 36.7%. For renters, it's 51.7%. And often people are renting are those people who can't afford to buy houses in the first place, which means they may not have the income that is as much as we would like. This is a little bit hard to see because it's dense. Every couple of years, the University of Washington provides data to various jurisdictions in the country about what's the self-sufficiency standard. What does it really cost to live in the county? They do it for Maryland and for Montgomery County. This is from 2012. The highlighted area in this light blue is the one I want to draw your attention to. When we talk about the federal poverty level, we talk about what the basic costs are for housing, food, and shelter. What the self-sufficiency standard does is also take into account that the family is probably working, so they may need child care costs and they may need transportation. And they estimate for one adult in a single-family household, one adult, one preschool child, and one school-age child, the cost of living in Montgomery County requires a salary of $74,983. That equates to $35.50 an hour. And think of all the people that you see working at McDonald's or in retail or wherever they are. That makes it really hard to live here. And those are some of the folks that we see who need assistance. I'm going to give you some data now, and again, think about the people behind it. And maybe you know people who were affected by the economic downturn. While it didn't hit this area as hard as some areas, other areas of the country, it did hit. With the sequestration coming and continuing, we don't know what that likely impact is going to continue to be. But we saw in some of our income supports dramatic increases. 43% increase in temporary cash assistance, helping people get going. The food supplement program, which you may know as food stamps, increased by 166% over this 5-year period. That's a lot of people. That's people who were poor to begin with and people who, because of the economic downturn, slipped over the edge from middle class into needing assistance. Medicaid increased by almost 69%, and those are the caseloads. Those are the people who were accepted for assistance. Below that, you see the application numbers. So many, many more people applied for assistance but weren't eligible. They were in that gray zone where they were too wealthy, if you will, to afford assistance, but too poor to really be able to afford what they needed. Along the same line, we've seen a lot of folks who've come in for emergency assistance just to keep them in their homes. Maybe a one-time voucher to help them pay their mortgage or their rent, and then they have to have a plan in order to continue. Or it may be to keep their utilities from being turned off. And we've had great support from our utility companies who also help with that as well. Almost all year round, our shelter beds are filled for folks who can't afford to be in any, or just are homeless. In physical and mental health, I think this tells a little bit too about the story of the impact of the stress of being poor or the stress of not having what you need. We have 18 clinics in the county that are run by private partners, and they serve the people who are uninsured and most of whom cannot be insured. They're often people who are undocumented or other folks, and they have seen a dramatic 32% increase over the period of time that we're talking about. I think now this year's numbers are up to 30,000 people are receiving services in the Montgomery County clinics. Suicide prevention is another indicator of the impact of the stress and financial difficulties. The Montgomery County Mental Health Association has a suicide hotline and saw more than 200 people, an additional 200 people in the last couple of years, up to 1,400 assessments, which is a lot of people really in dire straits. I know some of you are familiar with the various food distribution and food collection organizations in the county. I'm focusing now on MANA because that's what I have data for. This data indicates in the green line how many households have been served in terms of thousands of people and the percentage of increase over the last couple of years. and also how many smart snacks are provided. Those are snacks to kids in school. It might be of interest for you to know that in Montgomery County, there are more children in free and reduced meals than all of the District of Columbia. We certainly have a larger population, but people think of Montgomery County so much because we're well educated, we're pretty well off generally, but there's another side with all these pockets of poverty that are important for us to be considering. And I know that's part of what you do, and thank you for that. So that's my information. I hope you can think of the folks behind it and appreciate what you do to help us out.
Thanks, Joanne. We're gonna change gears here now that we've seen the demographic information. We're gonna invite 3 nonprofits to come up and join us on the panel here, and kind of show you the impact that the demographics we've shown you have actually had on the county itself, and how you can get involved and help the nonprofit partners out. We hope you'll be inspired and called to action after hearing of some of the work that they're doing today. Please help me welcome Ronnie Galvin from Impact Silver Spring. Ronnie's going to kind of kick us off here and tell us about the great work that Impact Silver Spring is doing.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks to the CVC for asking us to come speak. It's a pleasure to be here on the panel with my nonprofit partners. Good to see County Council here, county government, philanthropic community, individual donors alike have been tremendous supporters of the nonprofit sector. And I think since I'm going first, I can say thank you on behalf of our sector. My name is Ronnie Galvin, and I'm the Executive Director of Impact Silver Spring. And we're a nonprofit. We've been around for about 14 years. We're a little bit of a different kind of nonprofit. And when people think of nonprofits, you think mostly of, but not totally of, social service. How can we get support to those in our community who are struggling the most? We do some linking in that area, and I'll talk about that in a second. But the thing that we are most known for, there are 2 things. One is community engagement. And it's that whole arena of bringing together the diverse parts of our community to build a better community together. And so we do a lot of that. We go to places where people of privilege live, but we also go to those places that are isolated in our community where folks who are lesser privileged live, and we try to bring folks together to build a better community. But as we do that, we have 2 fundamental kind of grounding principles that really help to guide our work, and they're there on the screen. And I have a script too, because I could talk to you 20 minutes about this stuff, so I want to try to, or more. So I want to try to stay in the fairway this morning. But the first grounding principle is that people who have strong connections and who are a part of diverse networks are healthier, they're more economically secure, and they participate more fully in community life. And the second grounding principle is that the small group is the basic unit that creates momentum that moves families and communities from vulnerability to strength. And both of those grounding principles are embedded in our bigger frame. Here comes the technical term. We're the kind of nonprofit that builds community-based social networks. And that's just a fancy way of talking about how people are connected in their community. Who is your neighbor? Do you really know who your neighbor is? And I'll just do a quick test on you. When's the last time you borrowed a cup of sugar from your neighbor?
A couple weeks ago.
Right. Well, see, Kathy lives, right, you live like Tacoma Park, of course, right? But we used to do that all the time, right? And there's something about the spirit of communities where that happens naturally. And so we're trying to bring that spirit back in our communities. And what better county to do that in than Montgomery County? So real quick, our vision is for a thriving multicultural community where everyone has a full and quality life. And our mission as we build these networks is to ignite inclusive local economies and vibrant communities. When we started this community-based social network stuff, we were just, we're out in community, we're bringing folks together, we're singing Kumbaya, and everybody was having a good time. And when they left our spaces, they would say, wow, that felt good, but what did we achieve? What did we do? And so we've really tried to become more focused, and you as business owners know this. We've tried to become more focused on our bottom line results. And for us, we're trying to activate and build and energize networks that contribute to our economy. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a second, but it has everything to do with this notion. And one of the council people said this to me once, and I agree wholeheartedly. The best social service program is someone having a job, right? Or being able to generate income on behalf of their family and their community. And so we want to try to use networks, and we all use them in our daily lives and our professional lives. We want to use networks as a way to build our economy and our community. And so there's the technical definition that we created for community-based social networks. It's just a fancy way, again, of talking about what used to happen in those old school neighborhoods where everybody's mama was everybody's mama. We kept our doors unlocked, and no child was ever homeless or hungry. It's the kind of community that I grew up in Miami, Florida, where people are in intentional relationships and engaged in the practices of mutual support, collective accountability, meaningful value exchanges, and progress toward mutually beneficial goals. I want to talk a little bit about intentional relationships. So the data shows, right, that we're in one of the most diverse and diversifying jurisdictions in the country. And for those of us who continue to choose, everybody say choose. Choose. Everybody decides to choose to live here, right? We can't fool ourselves into thinking that living in a diverse community just happens because we live next to each other. It takes a certain level of skills, it takes a certain level of will, and it takes a mindset and a set of actions to do that so that everybody has enough. And our nonprofit is in the business of showing our community how to do that together. And the beautiful part of it is the folks who are coming here from all over the world, the folks whose doors we knock on, you'll see that in a second, they're actually teaching some of us who've been here all our lives what it really means to be in community with each other. And so that really is the bottom line of our business, how we incite and invite our county to live with intention in such a diverse setting. And so real quickly, there are three basic elements to our work. Joanne from HHS talked about the first one, the Neighborhood Opportunity Network. It shows up on the screen as NHOOD, but I couldn't quite fit neighborhood in there. But y'all know what I mean, right? But Joanne talked about the amazing services that this county has to support families that are struggling. And again, I want you to, when you get a chance, if you haven't done it, to don't just shake their hand, hug our county council people and our county executive, because listen, I've lived in places where there isn't provision for folks who are struggling. And while there isn't enough all the time, there is enough here compared to other jurisdictions. And the Neighborhood Opportunity Network is all about connecting to families who are in crisis. HHS came to us and said, we have these services as a county, but we don't know how to get connected in the isolated areas. And so we knock on doors, we find folks who are in crisis, and we connect them to services in their neighborhood. The second piece of the work is a part of the work, and as business owners, you'll appreciate this. As a nonprofit, guess what? We're businesses too, and we merged, everybody say merge. Merge. We merged a sports nonprofit into our nonprofit 3 or 4 years ago. It's called the Long Branch Athletic Association. Folks ask us, why in the world are y'all merging in a nonprofit for sports? Well, one, it was a recognized brand. It was about to go away, so we wanted to preserve that. But here was the payoff for us. The kids got to keep playing, low-income kids got to keep playing sports in their community, and we were able to interact with their parents on the practice field and on the game day fields to talk about services and other opportunities that are in our community. It's been a wonderful, wonderful addition to our work. And lastly, our newest work that we're really excited about, it's called Circle U, the People's University. And just real quick, small groups of folks who come together, 8, 10, 12, if they get really excited, 15, 20 people at a time, to work on various social, economic, and civic projects that move them, Joanne, thank you for saying this, from vulnerability to strength, to self-sufficiency, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a second. So as we're building these networks around the county, it all starts, thank you Teresa Testoni, who's knocked on a bunch of these doors with us, it starts with a door knock. Now that might sound daunting to you, but Every door that we've knocked on, people receive us with welcome arms and open hearts, willing and ready to tell us their stories. And so the question that we ask them is, how are you doing and how are your neighbors doing? And so all of that data that you saw here from the census and from Joanne, right? We get the stories behind that data. People are telling us, both privileged black backgrounds and underprivileged backgrounds, how they're doing. But we've shifted the question, right? And I want you to find this. It was on your chair. Find that, because we're coming at you in 2 minutes. We're coming at you in 2 minutes. The question we're asking now is, what is the thing that you know you're supposed to be doing? What is the thing that you know you've always wanted to do? It's been in the back of your head, but you've been scared of it, you've been intimidated by it, you didn't know how to get connected to resources, but if you did it, it would make your life better, your community better, and your family better. And we might even ignite an inclusive local economy and build a vibrant community. This is the question that we're asking. We used to ask the question around how are you doing because we understood there was a lot of need. We're moving from need now to aspiration. And the thing I want to clue you in on, you probably already know though, is that even the folks who are in need in our county, they got amazing gifts and talents. They got grit. Many of them have been business owners one place or another. They just hadn't figured out how to get activated, and they have that dream in the back of their head. And this question for many of them are unlocking that opportunity. And so as we do our work with the key areas of the network, here are some of they're not really results, they're more like outputs, right? And so in the 4 years, Joanne, we've been in the Neighborhood Opportunity Network. We've knocked on 15,000 doors. We've had about 250 volunteers helping us to knock on those doors. And there's been about, as a result of our efforts, about 25,000 visits on behalf of folks who need service to neighborhood-based service centers. On our sports side, about 700 kids from low-income families have played soccer. 180 basketball players are also playing basketball. We work on a big tournament every year. It's happening October 12th, downtown Silver Spring. Get ready for it. The Audacity of Hoops. Right? Audacity of Hoops. Thank you, Valerie Irvin, for that. And here's one exciting piece. So the high schoolers on our basketball teams come from lesser privileged families. They wanted to generate income. So we started connecting them to their diverse neighbors in the community. 16 kids with one arm tied behind our back and duct tape and chewing gum holding it together earned $6,000 working for their neighbors, not for the retailers, for their neighbors in the community. And so we're establishing intergenerational and interracial relationships. And then with Circle U, we've got 12 opportunity circles going, initial class of 100, people working on all kinds of projects, gaining new language skills, saving money, positioning to buy houses, and it says too here, there are actually 3 new micro enterprises, folks who were starting from scratch here, now beginning to operate their own businesses. And so here's the payoff. As we build the vibrant networks in our community, this is our new evaluation framework that we introduced this fiscal year, which started in July. These are the things that we believe will change in our community, a diverse community like ours. Racial and ethnic relationships will improve. More people won't just have access to service, but also access to opportunity. Everybody say opportunity.
Opportunity.
Health outcomes will improve. Income and local economies will be stronger, and more people, we sit right on top of Washington, D.C., more people will participate in the public square and civic life. And we believe all those things will do that thing in the corner, incite and ignite inclusive local economies and vibrant communities. So if you want to jump in to the network, if you want to jump into the circle, that's how you get involved. We'd love to have some of your time, door knocking, helping us with community engagement. We always need volunteer coaches. We're expanding our board of directors, so I talked to some of you today. Some of you are pretty hot. Talent, we love some of your talent. Technical assistance, if you have a particular level of expertise that you'd like to share with the community, we'd love for you to either join a circle or come start a circle. I'm getting ready to tell you how to do that. And of course, I'm a nonprofit. We're nonprofits, right? We got to ask for the treasurer, right? Right. So, lead sponsors, circle investors from some of the small businesses, and youth employment. You can find us on Facebook there, on Twitter there, and there's our website, and here comes the circle. Everybody pull out the circle. I want you to, if you so dare, because people all around the county, including county council people, school board members, and Salt of the Earth residents, we're asking this question to everyone. We have a dream wall up in our office, and I want to ask you, what are you supposed to be doing, right? Mark's getting ready to talk to you about a really big thing that's happening in our county that we've already previewed, and Kathy's getting ready to talk to you about some amazing work that she's doing to help resolve this issue of poverty and lack of access in our county. And my question to you is, what are you supposed to be doing? And if you so dare, write it down, put your name on it, and before you leave, give it back to me, and we'll put it up on our dream wall. Because what we'll do in about 2 or 3 weeks, we're gonna ask you, call you, and we're gonna say, what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? And so there are kids. Everybody say, Pamoja Tuta Shinde.
Pamoja Tuta Shinde.
That means together we will win. And by the way, this is one of the opportunity circles. They're teaching, these are low literacy level English speakers that are learning English with funding and support from Kathy's organization, Mikhail, which is a nice segue to my sister sitting on my left. Thank you very much.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Susie Morton, and I represent Howard Hughes Medical Institute, also known as HHMI. We joined CVC, I would say 4 years ago, so that we can meet the local nonprofits in the area so we can find out what they do and how we can help them. And we are here today so that we can get new ideas about what we can do for the community and what organizations are out here.
I'm Teresa Witt with Adventist Healthcare, and I'm also a board member of our CVC. Adventist Healthcare truly believes in the mission of volunteerism. We could not actually run our business without our volunteers. So it was just a natural match for me to be a part of our corporate volunteer council. I basically joined to be networking with other corporations and to learn how we can partner together with our community resources. But then I became passionate about what the CVC actually does. We actually promote service and volunteerism throughout the community and help nonprofits. Being a nonprofit myself, I can understand the importance of those relationships and how benefits from our corporate world helps our programs and processes move forward.
Have you heard the news? Montgomery Community Media has a brand new website at mymcmedia.org. Now it's easier than ever to search for TV schedules, show topics, and guests. Host your community events and share your comments with others. And be a voice in the community. All this and much more. See what's new at mymcmedia.org. Don't just watch media, make it happen.
Hi, I'm Peyton Harbour.
I'm Mike Lee.
I'm Linda Wayne.
I'm an intern at MCM.
I'm in the studio technician class.
I love the class at MCM.
The best part of the class is that you get hands-on experience with each piece of equipment that you use to put on a show.
I've worked on real live productions and have had a wonderful experience here.
Taking the entire series of studio production courses, and I can't wait to see where that takes me.
Thank you, Ronnie. How do you not want to get more involved with what Ronnie's working on after hearing that? I mean, seriously, how do you not want to get more involved? We're going to change gears again, and I want to welcome Kathy Stevens from the Montgomery Coalition for Adult English Literacy.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's so nice to be here, and thank you so much for taking your time to be here, because I think the more that we can be in space together to have some of these conversations and think about the big questions, the more we're going to be able to move forward as a community. And I'm struck, just before I get into telling you about Mikhail, is that we've had a lot of great data here. I'm not doing a data presentation today. I want to think about the big picture and think about the fact that we've seen great data. That is one part of the story here. I've been in several groups recently where we're really talking about that we've changed. We're not changing. I believe we've changed. And we have a story of 2 Montgomery counties, and how are we all going to be, at least 2 probably, how are we all going to be involved to bring those together in a way that creates synergy for everyone, not only people who maybe are trying to rise on their trajectory, but for those of us who probably feel like we're in a pretty good space, but there's synergy that we can gain from all of this. So let me give you a little introduction to Mikhail, which is the Montgomery Coalition for Adult English Literacy, and Ronnie gave a nice segue there. We are a community coalition. I want you to remember that word, coalition, that our mission is to strengthen the countywide network for English literacy services for adults. And we do that through advocacy, resources, training, and collaborations to support a thriving community and for the businesses in the room to support an optimal workforce, and I would add to that an optimal customer base and community as well. So the data that we know from the 2010 census is that there are somewhere around 150,000 limited English adults, we call them LEP, limited English proficient adults in the county, 150,000. McHale as a community coalition, and I would suggest to all of you that you are secondary stakeholders, if not primary stakeholders, in our coalition. We are a group of about 60 organizations in the county. You all have our provider directory on your chairs. Here's your visual. We're not going to go into detail, but these are the organizations, color-coded about where they serve in the county, the types of classes they do. This is not this year's directory. That's on the presses right now. This is also searchable on our website. 60 organizations that have 1,500 or so staff and instructors serving about 20,000 learners in the county. So what was that first number I gave you? 150,000, serving 20,000. That tells me there's a gap. It also tells me we've done a lot of work in building our capacity, but there's still a gap. So that's where I'm going to be focusing with the organization. How do we fill that gap? Because what we want to do is make sure that every adult who wants to can be employable, engaged, and empowered by literacy. How does McHale do our work? We are a staff of 3 individuals. I say 2.5 FTEs because one of my staff people is part-time. We're looking to grow that staff, but we build the capacity of the countywide network for literacy by providing resources. We are very thankful to County Council that they provide a significant amount of funding not only for our own operating needs, but we then serve as a grantor for many of the smaller organizations in the county and run a really competitive grant process for them so that we're tracking on their outcomes and the investment that the county is making. And that's something I'm paying a close attention to. In the past couple of years, the Prince George's County Literacy Organization folded from lack of funding. The DC organization right now is on some very unstable ground because of lack of funding. So I will say my personal thank you to the County Council and the County Executive, of course. But it also says to me that we need to broaden and deepen our sources of funding. And so, as Ronnie said, we do ask for treasure in many different ways. But I like to work on that in terms of a partnership. It's an investment for all of us in the community. So in terms of capacity building, we provide grants right now to about 17 organizations in the county. We provide a professional development institute for staff and instructors, usually at least monthly meetings of professional development training, and training to nonprofit staff for how they make their work count for more, basically. What can they learn to make their nonprofits more effective? And then public engagement. We are the repository and we do the analysis on all of the data from our organizations, and we think that paints a very compelling picture to understand what the need is, how we can best serve the need, and what is out there in terms of our results. And I believe very strongly in looking at the return on our investment with regard to that. The directory, we're printing 10,000 of these each year. Last year we ran out. We're always looking for corporate sponsors to put your name on the front, but that's a whole nother story. But this is a tool that's used by many of our social service partners and businesses, county offices, to help folks who need classes identify where and when they are. So why do we care? What impact does English proficiency have on the economy? We know that about 50% of our learners say that they come to class for an economic reason. They want to learn how to fill out a job application. They want to be able to fill out the job application online. So many job applications are online right now. They want to get a promotion. They want to get a better job, that kind of thing. At the same time, we also know from the adult education data that it takes an adult 6 years to become proficient in English. 6 years. And that's assuming that they get about 120 hours of instruction, about 2 hours a week, because that's kind of all the time they can afford. If they're lucky, and this is where we're trying to build infrastructure, many of our programs don't have the staffing, the space, all of that to provide more than that instruction. We have a couple that can, Literacy Council, Montgomery College programs, some others, where folks can go to class 3-4 nights a week, because you all know for your own education endeavors, when you're doing something and repeating it, it has more of a chance to stick, and you make further progress. That's why kids go to school every day for the amount of time they do. So we know there's a time there, but there's also an incredible need. People want to better their lives. They come with all kinds of goals, not only economic, but they want to be able to talk to their doctor. They want to be able to have a conversation with their child's teacher. We know that the best indicator of a child's success in school is their parents, usually their mother's literacy. So this investment spreads not only through our workforce and our economy, but obviously through the good of the community, and I would say an investment in our future of the county. For every dollar invested in adult education, there's a $3 return to the local economy in terms of other taxes paid and people's salaries. The barriers that we see our learners face are one of time, one of safe, reliable, and affordable childcare while they're trying to get to class, and one of transportation, safe, reliable, regular transportation, particularly in the parts of the county where it may not be metro accessible, for instance, or it may be cost prohibitive. I think, as I mentioned earlier, there are two stories of Montgomery County, and for me, I think there's some big conversations to have about kind of the fear that involves. Are people losing things that they have? Are they afraid of losing more? And what does it feel like when you don't have a basic tool, your communication, whether it's conversation, listening, reading, writing, in order to navigate the things that you need to do in your daily life? Bus schedule, your job, child's teacher, your doctor, reading a prescription. I heard a story yesterday of a problem that some of the clinics are seeing, the Holy Cross clinics actually, where people get sent away from the ER with their kind of instructions about what they're to do. Holy Cross apparently has a good system of follow-up, but people are getting, they think they kind of understand the instructions, but when they go to read them at home and really digest what that means, it's a different challenge for them, obviously. So we're thinking about a lot of different things, but I want to share with you kind of the face of a few of the learners that we have seen in our program, particularly as it relates to the theme today in terms of changing demographics and giving back to the community as you think about this. I contacted just a few of our programs a couple weeks ago just to get some update on some of their learners. And I heard about Taya, who had been taking classes at the Community Ministries of Rockville. Actually, she started there in their child care program about 13 years ago when her parents were taking English classes there. She was in the child care, and I guess while they're in child care, they work on their homework. She was getting help with her homework. She improved herself enough to be able to help others with their homework. Then through Montgomery County Public Schools Student Service Learning Hours, she became able to volunteer and give back to community ministries. And now she works in a full-time job. She goes to school, I believe, at Montgomery College, and she is a part-time instructor for Community Ministries of Rockville in their English program and the Latino outreach. There's the story we're talking about, right? And I think that's the story that we want to hear more and more about, the fabric of our life in our community. It's not just folks who may have been raised here, who know that giving back is the right thing. It's people who really have taken advantage of the services and really feel so strongly attached to what that meant as the change agent in their life that they want to give back. Dee Dee is another example, Casa de Maryland. She came to the United States as a domestic worker for, I believe, an ambassador, turned into a bad situation. She is a Portuguese speaker and a Spanish speaker as her first two languages. English has become her third language. She needed to get out of that bad situation, worked with CASA as part of the, I think it's the National Domestic Workers Alliance, and now gives back through that organization. And she said very specifically, she wants to be able to contribute to the community. She knows she has a job now, she pays taxes, that's important, but being able to give back is also as important. And then lastly, but not least, Milton, who is a learner at the Literacy Council of Montgomery County, born here in Montgomery County, I believe. He may have been born in the district. I may have that wrong. But Milton had to kind of reveal at some point in his adult life that he was not literate in English, which is his first language, when he filled out on I think one of those forms you fill out at the dentist, that he was pregnant. And that said to the hygienist or the dentist who was ever working with him that perhaps he didn't quite understand that question, and he got placed with the Literacy Council, and he now is a big advocate for adult literacy, speaking at men's groups, speaking to some of the youth we have in our criminal justice system, big advocate for literacy. So how can you be involved? Ronnie kind of stole some of my thunder with the time, treasure, and talent. We have several corporate partners: Adventist Healthcare, Johns Hopkins University of Montgomery County, M&T Bank, Chipotle, Dark Horse. We have a board member from Rosetta Stone, which obviously is one of the biggest literacy companies in the area. I'm looking for ideas and partnerships. We know that we need to continue to build the capacity. And if we're going to be able to offer every adult 20 hours of instruction a week, or more hours a year, or get the programs up so they can offer that, there's more investment in terms of time and probably treasure and talent that needs to happen. And there are probably a lot of creative ways that we can work on that together, but I think we got a big win-win for everyone. We have an annual event. We're just launching it this year. It's going to be a spelling bee. The buzz has already started. Okay. I'm getting a lot of positive feedback about that. Just making sure everyone's still awake, yeah. This is a model that many other literacy coalitions around the country have used. Corporate sponsors sponsor the event and get to enter teams of your favorite colleagues and put them on the stage and see how well they can spell. I'd like to see you out there. Yeah.
Spelling bee champion, 4th grade.
Oh, there you go. We also have a grants panel made up of community members that does evaluate our grant applications. We're always looking for people on that, and board members, and I'm open to entertaining any ideas that you have about how you, your communities, your companies might want to be involved, because literacy really permeates every day for all of us. We take it for granted, but for many people it's really an important thing. So I appreciate your time and attention and look forward to visiting with you more over the Q&A.
Thank you, Kathy. Next, we have Mark Burgell from A Wider Circle.
Good morning, everybody. I want to first thank you, T, for inviting me, wherever you are. Thank you very much. It's a real honor to be on this panel with you all. And I encourage you to hang out after this particular session ends, so when Chanel comes up, you all can listen to Chanel. You definitely need to hear Chanel. What happened?
I think you hit it. There you go.
So, I'll just tell you a little bit about how we were born. I'm the founder and the executive director of Wider Circle. My name is Mark Burgell, and I founded the organization about 12 years ago. I was teaching at American University, and I wanted my students, I was teaching a class on health and social connection. That was the name of it because the university wouldn't let me call the class The Importance of Love. And so they didn't want love in the title. And so I said, okay, well, let's call it connection, because that's really the essence of this. So I wanted my students to connect to people in need, because I'd studied health for a long time. My master's was in health. My doctorate was in societal health. And when you study health to the nth degree, you recognize the interconnectedness of us. And just like any chain, you realize that the health of a society is the health of the least healthy among us. And so when you study the least healthy among us, you study poverty. And so I wanted my students to volunteer, and in their volunteering, they actually had to connect to people who were in poverty. They had to look them in the eye and spend time with them. And my students said, well, what about if I clean the dorm? Is that okay? And I said, no, you can't clean the dorm. You got to go out and meet with people and spend time with them. And then I said, it's 10% of your grade. And they said, well, I'll volunteer. You know, I'll volunteer. It's 10% of your grade. And so I did it with them. And my volunteer effort was to bring food to people who didn't have any food in the region, which is always a crazy thing to say, because here we throw out hundreds of thousands of pounds of food over there, right over there. And yet usually there's a stone's throw, or at least 2 stones throw, from people who are starving, a mom who's sitting there with 3 kids who will eat their meal at school on Friday, and the kids' next meal will be school on Monday. And so this county is doing something about it. And this was 2001, though, so it was kind of crazy. And also in 2001, what I did is I found a place that kind of learned about people who needed this emergency food, and then you would go to their basement, you'd pick up sacks of food, and you'd go deliver it to the address they gave you. And so back then we had those books. Remember those books we used to use that tell you where to go? Maps. Remember they were maps? So you open those maps. And so I found myself on 16th Street. I just went right into the district, and there were these beautiful homes, and I said, well, who could need food around here? These are beautiful homes. And I took a left-hand turn following the directions, and it was like turning into a different country. The parking lot in this building was littered with glass and vials from drugs and shells from guns. And I pulled out the 2 sacks for the people who lived in this particular building, went up to the building. There was garbage strewn all around the building, and the first thing I think is, wow, kids are growing up in this particular building. And then there was a security keypad on the wall next to the door, and the wires were hanging from the keypad. So you know that keypad didn't work in a long time, and that's a metaphor for the lack of security that people who live in poverty have. And then I went to open the door, realizing I didn't need to put in a keypad, but there was no handle in the door. You could just put your hand right into the hole and pull it open. So I went into the hallway, and there were no lights in the hallway, and it smelled like a combination of things that you just don't want to smell if you're raising kids. And knocked on the door, and this gentleman opened the door, and it was supposed to be a gentleman and 2 kids, and it was. And so he opened this door, and it was a beautiful day outside. And inside, however, it was completely dark, and his blinds were pulled down. So I said to him, wow, it's a beautiful day. Why don't you lift your blinds? Being really insensitive. And he said, like he wouldn't know that he could lift his blinds if he wanted to. And he said, well, it's because we can't afford the air conditioning, and we don't have money for utilities, so I can't let it get warm in here by letting the sun come in. And that darkness, another metaphor for living in poverty. And so then I felt even worse, because then I apologized that we don't have any lights, but we don't have money for utilities. The first thing, however, that I noticed when I walked in his apartment was that the only things that you could see as you scanned this living room and dining room were a chair, like the chair on which you sit, and a television in the corner. And that was it. This family of 3, and the gentleman sat down in that chair, and his 2 sons stood right next to him. And that was it. There was a chair and a television. And so we talked for a minute. I said, do you mind if I put away your food? And he said, oh, it'd be nice. So I walked through, because he didn't look in good health. And so I walked into what would be a dining room for us, but was really just an empty square. It was just a room with nothing in it, so you can't call it a dining room. And as I walked through that, I could see a doorway there, and I kind of stared at the doorway, and he said, oh, let me show you the rest of the place. I don't know why he would say that, but he did. And we went into the bedroom. Again, you can't call it a bedroom because there was no bed. The only things in this room were a thin ripped blanket, one thin ripped blanket on the ground, and he said, this is where we sleep. And in the wintertime, we sleep close together. In the summertime, we sleep far apart. And then at the corner where the door was 2 plastic garbage bags. One garbage bag, he said, had clean clothes, and one garbage bag had dirty clothes. And that was it. And when he said that about the clothes, the kids looked at me really embarrassed. You could see that they didn't mind it until just then, when he talked about how the clothes were in these bags. And so I said, well, let me put away your food, and walked into his kitchen. And this was the sight I remember most of all. I opened the cupboards, and there was nothing in his cupboards at all. I never opened cupboards and seen nothing. No dishes, no glasses, no food, nothing. I opened the second cupboard door again, nothing in it. Put away the non-perishables, opened the fridge, and in the fridge there was a half a bottle of ketchup. And that was it. The contents of these people's apartment was a half a bottle of ketchup, 2 plastic garbage bags with their clothes, a thin ripped blanket, a television, and a chair. And that was it. And it was like that in apartment after apartment, whether I was in Gaithersburg or Silver Spring or Anacostia or Northeast DC. And that's the story of poverty in our region. Hundreds of thousands of people living this way. So the 4th apartment I went into that day, I'll spare you this story, but I pulled out of that apartment after meeting these, there was 2 kids, a mother and a grandmother, and here I go into a little details, just a little details. And the kids were 4 and 5 years old, and their skin and their teeth and their clothes were characteristic of what you would see on one of those commercials late night that says, if you send $1 to this country, you'll feed this family for a month. You know those commercials, they're good commercials and they're good causes. But here it was, literally a stone's throw from Montgomery County, a stone's throw from the U.S. Capitol. The mother was very, very deconditioned, very, very poor health, and the grandmother had oxygen tubes in her nose and a walker. And she reminded me of my 80-year-old grandmother, so I really started to talk to her, and we started talking, and then halfway through the conversation, she said, you know, Mark, I'm 35 years old. And I said, 35 years old? She reminds me exactly of my 80-year-old grandmother, because that's what poverty can do to you. So I pulled over on George Avenue, that's where I was, and I decided to start a wider circle. And here's what I was thinking, because a lot of people said to me, what are you thinking at that time? You know? And so I was thinking that, you know, as Nasreen can tell you, where did you go? There you are. That no matter how many people are living in those conditions in this region and in this country, the numbers still far outweigh the number of people in poverty. So whether it's 4 to 1 or 5 to 1 or 10 to 1, let's just say this is a family of 4. Even if the rate of poverty just escalated so high and it was 1 out of every 4, If we're brothers and sisters here, and I'm the one who doesn't have any food or any clothes, or knows how to speak English very well, or knows how to get a job, or has a bed, you guys would help me, right? Yes?
Yeah.
Yes, all right. So you would make sure I had my basic need items. You would make sure that I had a shot at success. And that's all it takes. Taking that model, for every 5 or 6 or 7, there's only one of us in that kind of need. So ending poverty, people give me a lot of grief for saying we're going to end poverty, but I know we're going to end poverty because it doesn't stand a chance with the numbers. No matter what the numbers come out on Thursday, there's still going to be far more of us who are not in poverty than there are mired in it. And all it takes is will and priority. That's it. I know how we exist as human beings. Individually, 60 trillion, 70 trillion cells, however many cells we have, they're all sitting there with receptor sites on it being told what to do. Our body just waits to be told what to do. That's how we exist as individuals. And as a society, it's the same thing. Society doesn't just happen. Poverty just isn't. We get the chance to create that. We really create our own reality. Individually and as a society, we create the world in which we live. And if we don't create it, somebody else will. So I always look at poverty as a verb. You know what I mean? It's people who are undereducated and underprepared. Well, we've prepared people who are underprepared. Education for youth. Well, we've educated youth before. Neighborhoods that are really dangerous, that's poverty. Neighborhoods that are war zones. Well, we've made neighborhoods safe before. So we can end poverty, and that's what a wider circle is all about. Now, we can't obviously do it alone with 35 staff members, so we love to reach out. We love to speak to groups like this because it is the business community that holds the best chance for us to succeed. Not saying the government can't get engaged. You know how I feel about you guys. It's the best local government. It's the best local government by far. Montgomery County by far. We work with a lot of jurisdictions. But more adults enter the business world than any other sector, the private sector, the business world. That's where the answers are. If we as a business community decide that poverty is going to end, then we'll end it. And so that's why I love coming to something like this. It's why I thank you, T, and it's why I started the organization. I thought if corporate America gets into this, if businesses say poverty is going to be the thing we end, then we will end it. I guess I should go to my other slides. Advancing the movement to end poverty. So we have a lot of groups volunteer, and I'll focus on this is e-management, this is Accenture. Whoops, Accenture on the bottom right, e-management on the top right. That's the Army. The fellow in the middle is from Walter Reed. So every weekend we get either Army or Navy or folks that come and volunteer, and there's Bullis on the far left, just as examples of schools that come to us. I think that's the lacrosse team. All kinds of teams come to us. We have 10,000 volunteers a year. But we need probably 100,000 volunteers a year to really get at this problem. And I'll talk about our programs. These are just some of the examples. T said, please mention some companies, Mark. So I mentioned some companies that come. Washington Gas is a great corporate partner, JBG, Lockheed Martin, Marriott International, M&T, Hodgson Consulting, Discovery. You can see it right there, all the way down to Kate's 50th. What that means is that if you have a birthday coming up and you want to have a birthday party, make it about service. I'll show you a picture of a couple of kids who take that to heart. But every group of any kind, civic association, religious team, school, anything you got, neighborhood, or just your family, that's who comes and volunteers at a wider circle. I always feel like, numbers are big parts, but I'm really probably of all the people here, the last one to talk about numbers. So I'll just say that I believe we can flip this script. This is the number of Montgomery County children and adults in poverty. I like to look at numbers. Sometimes percentages are helpful, but I've never really served a percentage. You know what I mean? So I think it's number of people, because if we knock those percentages down, so we cut it in half, that's not good enough. We can't reduce poverty by 50%, because that'll mean there's still 500 people on any given night who are homeless in Montgomery County. So I think we talk people, and I think we can flip this script. We have a plan to end poverty. It's a much longer discussion, but it does speak to 4 things: safe and vibrant neighborhoods. Boy, poverty just creates war zones. You know what I mean? None of us, even almost as a whole group, could walk into many parts of our nation's capital tonight. It's our nation's capital, right? It should be the bastion of what's possible. That's why we serve, because we want to create what's possible. But here we are, we can't go to half the nation's capital, and there's only one reason: poverty. There's one reason murders are so high in Chicago, and gosh, we had one murder in Montgomery County last year, and it was in the news, for a long time, and it needed to be. But every week there's a murder in Washington, D.C. Every week. This story, the front page, Sunday's Post. And so the only reason these people get murdered is poverty, and the only reason people murder is poverty. Not the only, but it's the majority reason, right? It's the reason these kids drop out of school at so alarming rates. Some schools in this region, 50% of the kids won't graduate. I worry in Montgomery County about the Latino American population dropping out at such a high rate because they will soon become entrenched poverty. They won't become new immigrant poverty, they'll become entrenched poverty, just like we see in other urban settings, unless we interrupt that cycle. So safe and vibrant neighborhoods, long-term connections, that's the key, man. It's the key, it's connection. And so it's a great way to volunteer as well, as I'll talk about that. Individual one-on-one partnerships, not adopt or mentor, but partner with somebody who's in poverty, because if you live in poverty, you live in a different world than the rest of us. You're not free to pick out where you're gonna go to dinner that night. You don't go to dinner at night. You eat what you got if you got it. There's no restaurants in your life. And so you get clothes from whoever will give you clothes. And so you're not free and independent if you're in poverty. However, there's enough of us who can kind of connect to those people one-on-one and be a bridge into that world of independence. And that's the marker, by the way, for how do you know if you're out of poverty, or how do you know if you're helping somebody get out of poverty? It's when you help them become independent. Are they independent? Because if they're independent, then they're probably not in poverty, or certainly not to the degree that we see folks. Education advancement, quality housing for all. We got some really nice initiatives in this country going on right now for quality housing. I believe there's more units available than people who are without homes, by far. And so it's a matter of will. Let's just match people who don't have homes. And let's not call them homeless people, because they're people first. So I'm really careful about that. I never use the word poor person, because if I had somebody who I was serving sitting right next to me, I wouldn't say, shouldn't we help this poor person? No, we would say, hey, we can support this person. So I think that's critical how we talk about this as well. I'm sounding awful preachy, I apologize about that. So here's the three things the Wider Circle does. We provide basic need items. Every day we bring in about 20 families. They go to our warehouse, like Sebastian, who's standing up on his first ever bed. And we give people beds and dressers and tables and chairs and sheets and towels and dishes and pots and pans, everything that would turn that empty apartment into a fully furnished home. What a difference to go from waking up in the morning with nothing in your apartment, trying to raise kids, to that night going to sleep in fully furnished homes. It's dramatic. And we do that with your stuff. Anybody ever donated to a Wider Circle? Oh, wow, that's great. I really shouldn't talk at all. You guys know what we're doing. But right, so that's how we do it. And we came to your home, it was great, right? Because our guys are yeah, it was great.
It was great.
Yeah, our guys have, capacity, physical capacity, but big hearts, because they know that they are the ambassadors for people in need. People in poverty are among the most voiceless people in our country. But when our guys can come into your home and say, hey, your stuff's going to be in somebody's home in 48 hours, you're not just getting rid of your stuff anymore. You're part of the solution. You're connecting to people. And just imagine for a minute, it was like we furnished last year the homes of 3,650 families. This year we'll furnish more than 4,000 homes. We worked 7 days a week last year, so I don't know how we're doing more this year by so much, but I think it's because of the guys who do this work, the staff that comes in. It's hard to find people like that, but when you find them, boy, they're just really great. So we provide those basic need items. The second thing we do is education and resources. I'm going to admit something to you, Councilmember Rice. I'm a little embarrassed, but we just opened up a professional development center this year because you cannot get out of poverty, like you guys have said, without a job. And so we would have people come to us who would, we'd have these education classes. Job skills is our #1 class. We help people write resumes, do mock interviews. And mock interviews are great because you can turn from being unconditionally loving to being kind of tough love. You can say, well, you cannot say that word in an interview. You cannot wear that outfit. You cannot have that ringer on your phone, right? This is what it's going to be like. You can wear whatever you want, have a tattoo wherever you want, but so does that business owner have the right to do whatever he wants or she wants. So we have that kind of tough love discussions. But we prepare people for jobs. They get jobs, and then they call us and say, I'm really sorry, Mark, you guys did such a great job for me, but I can't take the job. We say, well, why not? They say, well, because they said I had to have 2 pairs of khakis and a button-up shirt and black shoes, and I don't have any of that stuff, and I don't have the money for it. So we say, you get outside, we're going to pick you up, and we're going to get that stuff. So we opened up a professional development center where we not only have those classes, but we have all kinds of professional attire. And when I shook your hand, I said, that is a really nice outfit he's wearing. I would love that jacket and tie.
Just saying.
So we have, and you guys all brought some clothes. I saw that rack out there.
Yeah, later.
Later, not right now.
Yeah,
okay.
And then long-term support is the last piece of what we do. So we try to match people who are in poverty with people who are not in these long-term relationships, either individually or business to a family or school to a school or church to a church. I'm going to try to finish up. I'm getting that word. So what can you guys do? Obviously, you commit to the community, a shirt off your back. We just talked about that. Think big. I think we need to think big. I think here's a company that raised $50 in a 2-hour stint. This kid and his sister just had a lemonade stand, And then he came over and he gave me a pitch about what they just did. I wanted to hire him as my director of development. He was that good. And it's hard to find a good director of development. And so, anyway, I put a marker in with his parents for 20 years. And so we have volunteers of all ages. If they can do that, what can your company do, right? And then think boundaryless. Since PG and DC are struggling so much, we can't let our people over there just struggle, and we can't end poverty in Montgomery County and have a ton of it go to Prince George's County. We need to think boundaryless about how we exist. I love this quote by Rusty Schweiker. When he was up in space, he looked back down. He said, you look down there, you can't imagine how many borders and boundaries you cross again and again. From where you see it, the whole thing is beautiful. It's a whole, and it's so beautiful. And so district poverty has stayed about the same, but look at the other places, because people have just moved. And if you go outside to other counties, Frederick and Anne Arundel, poverty's changed even more there. We can't move poverty, we've got to end poverty. And so I think opportunity is the third piece. Serve not because you should, and help not because you feel badly if you do not do so. Guilt does not need to be a part of this equation. This is about the opportunity we have before us to be the generation that ends poverty. We can do it. It's the fifth major social movement of our country. We formed a country, we ended slavery, women voted, civil rights, and now it's poverty. That's our calling. I think I see it every day. I see it happening. And I think volunteering in that mode is the pathway to that. The bridge to ending poverty is our engaging with people. So it's not something to check off the list. It's an opportunity to be fully human. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, Mark. When people always ask me, why do you get involved, or why does your company get involved? I mean, here's 3 prime examples of why we all should get involved in the county and the great work that they're all doing. And I hope if you get one thing from today, that we all go back to our offices and figure out how we can get involved to these great organizations or other great organizations. And that's where the CVC will help you as well. So I'm very excited for our next speaker. The only person who might be more nervous than I am today is Chanel Giles. So Chanel's going to come up here and tell us her story and how the impact that a wider circle has had on her life.
Step down.
Good morning. My first encounter with poverty was at the tender age of 8. I remember being awakened to violent screams of my father shouting and my mother pleading for her life. I was born into an abusive family. My parents were products of impoverished, abusive families. When you see nothing else, you live nothing else, and you repeat it. My father tried to escape poverty by joining the military. He did his time in the military, but he could not shake the alcoholism or the drug addiction that followed. My mother continued her trend with abusive men. She later remarried to a man who sexually, physically, and emotionally abused me. I remember being emotionally broken at the age of 11. My escape did not come until at the age of 19. By that time, I was pregnant and had to leave home. I went from one attempt to another to better my life. I went to bed hungry many nights just so my children's stomachs would not growl, and the food was often provided from a neighbor. On my journey, I have gone without eating. I have been homeless. I have been incarcerated. I have been to a point of contemplation of ending my own life. My future, my son's future, appearing so bleak. When a family is living in poverty, their choices become limited. Their dignity is stripped away. I was continuing a cycle of poverty into which I had been born. I too married an abusive man. But I am here today to tell you my life has changed. In 2009, I enrolled in the Arbor Educational Training Program, which is set up to help adults get back to work. One of the requirements of this program was to volunteer if you were not working. That is how I was introduced to a wider circle. I interviewed with Mark. This was the first time an employer had ever asked me how I was doing and was really sincere. I felt comfortable enough with him to share my story. And he took a chance on me. And I began to volunteer with the Wider Circle. I was overwhelmed with the people behind the scenes, working hard to end poverty. We did not share the same skin color or backgrounds, and they wanted me and people like me to live a better life. What else could I do but get involved? In January of 2010, I became a full-time staff member as a program assistant through a partnership with Montgomery Works. The program could only support 6 months of salary for employment. The goal was to have you prove yourself as a valuable employee in hopes that the employer would hire you permanently. Through a lot of hard work, dedication, and commitment, that is just what I did. And now 6 promotions and close to 4 years later, I currently work as an associate director for a Wider Circle. My own journey has brought me to a new 3-bedroom house provided through a Wider Circle. Sorry, I am lucky because I get to work with people who are an extended family to me. And just so you know, the bar is set high. There is no special treatment for this girl. Mark has been a male mentor and role model for my son and is now heavily involved with his walk to college. I'm also lucky because I get to see people uplifted every day. They come in not knowing what to expect. Some are fleeing an abusive spouse. Some are reuniting families, getting beds for their children to sleep on. And others were homeless and now have a new place but need furniture and basic need items for those places. When they leave, they're filled with joy and gratitude. They leave with a sense of pride restored. What does it mean to give someone that you care, to take an interest beyond them and just giving them a handout? When someone takes enough of an interest to offer you a job, the opportunity to regain your self-worth. I know what it's like to be judged or helped with condescension. I know what it means to comply. I know what it's like to be taken from your loved ones, but now I also know what is possible when there is human connection, when you have people around you who can help nurture and help you see your potential and walk alongside you. Therefore, I hope you will get engaged and help create what is possible by helping people like me who want to break the cycle of poverty and live a better life.
Thank you, Chanel, for sharing your amazing story with us and giving us an understanding of how our time and talent and treasure can make a lasting impact on somebody's life. We really appreciate it. Unfortunately, we're running a little long, so we're not going to have time for questions, but we do invite everybody to stick around and talk to our panelists as well as do some networking. And again, I want to thank everybody for coming. You can find out about these phenomenal organizations on their various websites as well as on the CVC website. So thank you again for coming.
I was absolutely blown away. I actually was the brainchild of today's event, and to see it come together and the power of the panel and the demographic data that was shared today, it just really came together beautifully. And I have to say, the testimonial that we had from the young lady from a Wider Circle, I think blew everybody's socks away because she really put perspective on sort of the whole picture and the cycle of serving.
I thought it was very inspiring. You know, you hear a lot about Montgomery County being this affluent location, and the schools are so wonderful and great, but you don't hear the other side of it about the poverty and the people that need housing, that need clothing, that need just people to go out and mentor with them. So it was really a great opportunity to see the other side of what's happening in Montgomery County.
It was tremendously powerful. The needs in this county are tremendous because the county continues to grow and our diversity continues to expand. And I think it's so eye-opening to hear firsthand stories about people in need and how we as a community really need to lift each other up.
Montgomery County is such a unique and interesting place, but what makes me love this county so much is that we have so many people who give back in ways that you can't even imagine. And today was an example of that. This panel was just terrific. We heard about our demographic changes and the challenges that brings to all of us who live here in Montgomery County. The fact that so many of our neighbors are living behind closed doors in poverty and need, and the fact that there are so many people wanting to give back and to try to help the situation. So a lot of the work that I've been doing on the council has been around the area of poverty and hunger. And so it was really good for me to be here. I do really want to mention that when Mark Burgell said the word love, and to me, that's really indicative of what this morning was all about, because there's a quote that I really love from Che Guevara, who was a revolutionary, but he said, revolutionaries are guided by feelings of great love. And I think this was a room full of revolutionaries here this morning who really believe that our love for this county and our community is what drives us forward and makes us want to do the great work that I think everybody here is doing. So it was a great opportunity to put people together and to continue the theme of building community. And so I was so grateful to have been invited. I hope this becomes an annual event, and it just gives me more impetus to keep doing the work that we're all doing together. So I just feel very grateful for having been here.
We all know about the issues in the county and the challenges, but the CVC is all about solutions and businesses working together with their employees. And we wanted people to come out of this with concrete ways that they could help. How can they use their time, their talent, and their treasure? And I could see the conversations going on and the people saying, I really want to get involved, I'm going to contact you. So I think we achieved our goal.
Please join us at cvc-mc.org.